My name is Scott Challoner, and you are listening to the Leaders Council podcast for the people who run the country and the people who keep the country running. Now, as regular listeners of our programme will know very well, part of our mission here at the Leaders Council is to bring you a variety of distinct perspectives on leadership and current affairs. And to this end, I'm delighted to be joined on today's show by Jane Frankland, founder of the Source Platform for Women in Cyber, an organisation that is aimed at helping more women enter the cybersecurity industry. Jane, a very warm welcome to yourself, and thanks for joining us on the show. It's a real pleasure having you with us.
Oh, thanks so much, Scott. It's so good to be here.
And it's fantastic welcoming you onto the programme as well, Jane. And just for those listeners that might not be familiar with her, Jane is the founder, as I say, of the Source Platform. But she's also the founder of the in-security movement and owner and CEO of KnewStart as well. And that forms part of a cybersecurity career that has gone on for well over 24 years now. So, Jane, perhaps you could tell us just a little bit more about that and sort of how initially you sort of broke into the sector, because it isn't something that a great many women actually work in, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got in 97, so November 97 was when I started, and I didn't come from I didn't have a technical background at all. I was interested in technology, but my background actually was in art and design. So I'm a grad. I've got a degree in woven textile design. So for me, I went straight into the industry and built a company. So I was working with a partner who was technical, and he said to me, like, "Are you up for this? Should we go and create a company?" And because I didn't know anything about technology, but I like a challenge, I love a challenge, I suggested we look at security because it was new, and I thought it was really interesting. Actually, I thought it sounded a bit like James Bond, which is embarrassing, but like, forgive me, I was in my 20s, and so. That's kind of like what we did. And we started this company. We started it kind of locally. It was high end, we were very flexible. We were very forward thinking, and the quality of service was, high end. So that's kind of how I got into the industry, and everything has come from that. And the company that I spoke about, we specialized in what many people will understand as hacking, so ethical hacking, or what we in cybersecurity call penetration testing or security assessment.
Yeah, certainly makes sense from my perspective. So plenty of different sort of things that you were doing, certainly in the industry. I think it's fair to say. And as we touched on at the beginning, part of your sort of role today involves really sort of working as a trailblazer for women in the technology sector. Why is it you feel that maybe the presence of women working in cybersecurity is quite low at this point in time?
Well, there are reports out there that say we have anything from, I would say, about 18 to 25% of women in the industry. And that's going to differ depending on what country you're in. But globally, if we work on kind of that range, the numbers of women aren't necessarily being tracked consistently. So it's hard to actually establish, well, why are the numbers as low as they are? From previous records like data and surveys and things like that, the numbers were higher, which is something that led me to actually start off, on this journey, looking at women and how we can get more women into the industry. So for me, it looks like we were doing better, more women were in the industry, and then it's dropped, and now we are either stagnating or climbing again. But it's really actually hard to ascertain because the way that we're measuring isn't consistent. So the methodologies have changed. So, for example, one company who was measuring it consistently over a period of time, when I started writing about it and doing the work and certainly writing my book in security, on it, the numbers were at about 10 or 11% globally. And here in the UK, we had about 7 or 8% of women in cyber, which is much lower than women in technology, which I think is about 19% or round about that, so considerably higher. But then the company that was tracking the numbers of women in the industry changed their methodology. So all of a sudden it rose to 24%, so it's really hard to establish what's going on and why we have this issue. However, without doing the data, and I like to refer to the data because that brings more accuracy. However, having said that, I know that we're doing a better job of kind of presenting ourselves out to the world in terms of what we do, because, really on the face of it, cybersecurity, information security, IT security, network security is still a very new domain. It's not been around for very long, so we're still finding our way. So people of my age who've been in the industry for as long as I have, really fell into it. You've got many, many people like me who fell into it, who didn't study technology or who were doing something else and then were landed, with security. Whereas nowadays it's very different. It's far more strategic. There are degree courses and people are consciously choosing to actually have a career in cybersecurity. So again, going back to the early days, it was quite open. You were given it. You were landed with this job, whereas now it's actually the doors have closed because it's of a higher priority. The risk is greater because of the interconnectedness and just the explosion of technology that we have and the consequences of that. So, this is why it's just like it was open, then it's closed. And what we're trying to do, I think, right now is open it again, but with some guardrails around us, so that we can create the talent, develop the talent, showcase the future-proofedness, if that's a word, of the industry, because it's highly attractive, in terms of its longevity. I mean, cybercrime, cyber attacks, data breaches, compliance failures aren't going to go away. You're never going to get rid of them. So whereas because technology is advancing, there are some there are some jobs that are being replaced. So for example, I was talking on a keynote recently, I was talking about sustainability. And as I was researching into this, one thing that I noticed from the World Economic Forum was that they were saying that due to the advancements in technology, so things like AI and other automated technologies, machine learning and things like that, they were expecting 75 million jobs to be displaced in 2022 and 133 million jobs to be created by the end of 2022. So that was like 54% of the world are having to reskill or upskill, in order to deal with it. So it's quite interesting.
And obviously, in the backdrop of this, the demands on the cybersecurity industry are increasing, and it is facing a lack of talent, isn't it? As you've alluded to, looking at some data from Fortinet, which you actually included in a recent blog of your own, Jane. Actually, there's a worldwide skills gap within the cybersecurity industry of 2.7 million vacancies. And that's something that's been exacerbated as well by sort of attitudes post-COVID as well. So the Great Resignation, to whatever extent, of course, you believe in it, it's continued to sort of increase the competition for talent. And there's a lot of organisations out there that are facing sort of vacancies that they're struggling to fill. So against the backdrop of, needing to bring more women into the industry needs more talent altogether, doesn't it? So bringing them in, essentially no matter what the gender is going to be so critical.
It does, but it also needs, again, there are some stats out there that say like 62% of hiring managers are struggling to actually attract the talent they're looking for, and something like 52% or something like that are actually struggling to retain it. So we have this issue of both attracting and retaining talent, needed talent. But the other thing that we have going on is this inability to actually source talent, or the acceptance that we are actually going to have to invest in talent, so create it. So there are complexities to this, and it's not as simple as it. Yeah, we need more talent. We need to improve how we are hiring, because it is totally dysfunctional as it is, and that also affects gender, because of the unconscious bias. The way that companies, large and small, are actually hiring talent.
Yeah, absolutely. So with regards to actually sort of creating a pool of talent to tap into then for businesses, do you think that education has a part to play in this, or is industry to an extent going to have to step up to the plate and almost offer kind of the in-house training programs to bring through people, do you feel?
It's got to be both. You've got to do both. So a lot of, when we're talking about this topic, a lot of people will say we've got to get into the schools, earlier on and invest in that pipeline of talent. And yeah, absolutely we do. And we've got to showcase, what is cyber, and that is evolving. So the breadth of what it actually includes, because it is not purely about technology. In fact, there are some out there, me included, who will say, actually, really, this is a business discipline. So it's very, very broad. So we have to get into the schools. We don't have to teach cybersecurity in the schools, but what we do need to do is teach cyber risk literacy, and work on the basis that everyone needs to be doing this, whether or not they come into the industry or not, but actually creating that the openness. You're aware of this, and this is an attractive industry, and this is what it can offer you. So, consider it, and we need to educate the teachers and the parents, when we're doing that, because it's not just about the school children, or in this case, if we're talking about gender, girls. So we have to do that, and then industry has to step up. We have to be collaborating more. We have to be investing in the future talent and the existing talent, and we need to be doing a better job of improving our culture, which, quite frankly, is it's tough. It's a hard industry to be in. Just the amount of sheer learning that you have to do when you're in it. Nothing stands still. It's dynamic. Things change all the time, which means you have to constantly be investing in your skills, your it could be certifications, or certainly knowledge what's going on. So it requires that. So a little bit of both.
Do you think that those quite extensive demands on the workforce then could be part of the issues around the retention side of things? And again, I'm sort of linking this to what we've seen sort of post-COVID. There's a lot of sort of prioritising, isn't there, now, of the work-life balance, people's sort of mental health and well-being. And I suppose, do the stresses of working in cybersecurity really feed into that? And that's maybe why we're seeing not necessarily a wholesale exodus of talent, but we're seeing those issues with the retention.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've got to have better leadership. If we actually improved and really focused our efforts on leadership and better leadership, we would be doing so much better, just in terms of attracting new talent, retaining talent, and then actually not locking ourselves down, but the quality of our work would improve. So yeah, we really do. We've got to. It's incredibly stressful. So, and what happens is when we're losing staff, we've got all of these attacks coming into our environments, into our organizations. If we are under-resourced, which so many companies are, then it impacts existing workers so much more. So then they're overloaded, and it's stressful anyway. So they've got all of that. They're carrying all of that burden, with them. And it's no wonder why they are burning out, why they are stressed, why they are leaving the industry, and why they're becoming sick. And then when you look at women, when women are repeatedly being told in cybersecurity that they have to work twice as hard or 10 times as hard in order to do well in this industry, which isn't actually the case, but they're being fed that. And of course but a lot of them think that they do. It's no wonder that women are burning out faster. So we need more resilience. We need better ways of working, and we need our leaders to step up and actually, spot what is going on and shield them. And I say that with compassion, because I know that the cybersecurity leaders out there are having a really tough time as well, because they're carrying this burden themselves. They are not supported within organizations by and large. If anything happens, then they're used as a scapegoat, and then off they go. So it's an incredibly tough. It's incredibly tough in cybersecurity right now, and the industry really needs supporting. Leaders within the industry really need supporting, and there needs to be a greater awareness of just what is going on.
There absolutely does. And if you are sort of a leader within the sector that may be sort of tuning into this podcast right now, Jane, if you are dealing with this and really shouldering this burden, what do you feel are perhaps some of the practical steps that you can take to really start to implement that culture that is going to really deliver and sort of help sort of retain that talent and bring sort of new blood into the industry as well?
Well, I would talk to those, talk to your leaders. So if you have, whether you're a CIO, a CFO, a CIO, a CEO, whatever, talk to the stakeholders, find out how they are doing, how they are coping, really build the trust. When you have an environment of psychological safety, then you're able to get the performance that you're looking for, because people feel safe working with you. Yes, they can be stretched and they can be challenged, but they're supported too. And you've got to have both of the stretch, the challenge and the support in equal doses. When they're not in equal doses, when someone is navigating their way through that, for a length of time, then they're really going to struggle. So it really is speaking to your team and finding out how they are doing and letting them know that they are supported and they are protected and you have got their backs, and finding out what they need in order to do better. And then if you are able to, providing that, for them. So that's what I would say, build the trust, work on your emotional intelligence, have a conversation. I mean, what I find really surprising is that time is not being made to actually talk to the team. An email might be sent and that's fine, or maybe it's not. Or maybe you're so busy that you think, I must do that, and then you just don't get around to it. Or you think that you have, because of this bombardment that is happening. So you have to make time to talk to your team and the leaders individually, and then the team collectively, and really build that psychological safety and the trust. And then you're gonna be doing better.
It's imperative, isn't it? Because I suppose as leaders, what we have to do is we have to take the lead on well-being, don't we? I mean, we have to obviously show that we are willing to, sort of foster the relationships that are going to encourage well-being within the workplace and encourage that psychological safety. But I think it's important as well that if we are managers or leaders that are being overburdened ourselves, we also take the lead on well-being and we step back as and when we need to, and we don't burn ourselves out. Because I think if those below us see us essentially working in such a way, that almost sets the expectation on them as well, doesn't it? So we need to be very much conscious of that.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, you're a leader. That means like follow me, follow my lead. You want to be practicing what you preach, but equally you also want to be recognizing, and I think this is really important, what burnout looks like, because it's very, very easy to end up in a situation where you are burning out, and not to have recognized those signs. It's just like, yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, I know I'm close to it. All of a sudden you're burnt out, or just be going down that path. I know this year I've come really close, to burnout. And ironically, I'm not going to shame myself for this, but I was teaching about burnout. I was doing a class, and that's the class on burnout. And then as I was doing it, I was there looking at it going, oh my God, actually I'm sailing really close to the wind right now. I actually have to stop. I have to take some time out and actually just get myself in a position where I'm working in a more sustainable manner, because right now, this is not. So you need, I think, as a leader, you need to be aware of that, and you need to have people around you who can support you, who might spot it before you do. So that could be, a family member, it could be a mentor, it could be a coach, but you need that support mechanism around you.
You absolutely do, and that surely is food for thought as well for any business leader within the industry or in any sector that may actually be tuning in and thinking, you know what, maybe I am sailing a bit close to the wind on the burnout frontier, or maybe I'm seeing this among my employees. And if you did want to sort of reach out to sort of share a comment, a perspective, or even a question with us here at the Leaders Council, and of course anything directed to Jane will of course forward onto her, you can reach out to us via leaderscouncil.co.uk/contact-us, just to remind you. And just before we finish on the programme today, Jane, because I'm conscious that we're starting to run short of time on the show, which is a great shame because this is a subject that I could literally sit and speak with you about all day for sure. I'd be interested to understand, as we sort of move through this journey and we understand what the sector needs, what are some of your sort of goals and priorities going to be over the course of this 12 months ahead of us?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm working that out at the moment. So what I do at the end of each year, I look back on my year. So it's actually quite a big process, and I have got a training program and also an asset. I'm looking across here because actually it's called In Focus. So it's a journal and planner, but I just created it. And so for me, it's really about looking back on this year, working through this methodology that I have to ascertain, well, what did actually work, what didn't work, what am I going to ditch, and what am I going to refine, and so on. So for me, I've still got to do that. I've got an inkling as to what it will be. And so my inkling as to what I'm going to be focusing much more on next year will be actually the leadership aspect. You know, I've got a program called Spring, which is aimed at women, C-levels, insecurity, and outside of it as well. So we build that diversity, but that's what I'm looking to do. And it's very much a mastermind approach. So I'm pretty excited about that, but that's what my inkling is for next year, and weaving that into the source of the platform.
Well, I certainly hope it does go well for you, Jane, and that period of reflection on the year that's gone by is going to sort of set you up well for the future. I think that was something that we learned a lot during the pandemic itself, wasn't it? The value of taking that time to step back and reflect, and then sort of move forward based on that, absolutely. And I think as it becomes clear what the future holds for you in the industry, I'd love the opportunity as well to maybe even catch up and have you back on the show in future just to see how things are all coming together.
Thanks so much, Scott. I would love that.
I certainly would as well, Jane. It's been an immense pleasure welcoming you onto the programme, and I do hope that everybody listening in has thoroughly enjoyed my interview today with Jane Frankland, founder at the Source Platform for Women in Cyber. And just to remind you as well, if you do have your own perspective that you wish to bring to the discussion table directly on this matter that we've discussed today, or on any topical matter or issue that may be relevant to you, then you can also apply to be on the podcast itself, and that would be via leaderscouncil.co.uk/apply. For now, I've been your host, Scott Challoner, on today's episode, and it's been fantastic hearing Jane Frankland come and join us to talk all things cybersecurity. And next time, when we'll be back with a whole new perspective on leadership and current affairs, please do take care, everybody, and goodbye.